Welcome everyone to the science of spiritual growth, where we're talking about, I was about to say science of spiritual motherfucking growth. You know why? Because words are not taboo. People are too sensitive about words. Like even myself, why would a word create a impact on my system? Why would I not have control over how I respond just because of a sound and some arbitrary, word? We're going to kind of get into that today. And I'm one of your hosts, Yogi Chris, PhD. I'm the founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, host of many podcasts, author of many books. I travel the world teaching yoga, and also have a PhD in the Normie Human University. So that counts for whatever that counts for. I'm joined. This show has a co-host. We share our opinions. So be an adult, take these opinions as just that, opinions, process it in your own reality, make it work for you. And obviously, we have lots of links in the descriptions for these broadcasts, so you can join our private Facebook group where we give away free content. We're about to do a donation broadcast called the Sangha, the monthly Sangha. It's on the 2nd of every month, so that takes place next Tuesday inside the group, so you got to be part of the group to join that. And there's always ways to contact us or whatever. My co-host is an advanced Buddhist meditation practitioner, lives in Toronto, Canada, but he's got full recall of a past life of being from another country. And that country is in Southeast Asia somewhere, probably before the country boundaries were even there. And, or, who knows, the country boundaries might have been different. So who knows what country officially that guy was from. But this guy remembers that guy and brings forth some of the wisdom of that guy. He also has a deep bottomless wisdom within him that he taps into with his meditation. So he'll be giving us his perspectives and his insights from that. Welcome to the show, Little Monk IMC, aka Yuri Verbishchuk.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. And this topic title you came up with, I'm very interested to see what it means or how you interpret it.
Well, like I was saying, these words, they affect me and they affect other people negatively. You say the wrong thing to the wrong person and it's like, whoa, what kind of baboon animal just came out there? Like some of my baboon just came out. And I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, why? Like I saw myself losing control and I was like, why am I losing control? Like, I get it. It's logically, I get that whatever happened was agitating, but it's like, man, is this really my best expression of this, negative feeling that I'm feeling? In truth, it's better than it was. There was times when I would repress. There was times when I had even more destructive outcries or expressions or so on. But even still, if I got a problem with how I'm responding to a situation, then I got a problem with it. Like, why am I not in control? Okay. So yeah, we could go into the trauma of it, the tape recorders, the engrams, the however you want to call it, the patterns in my consciousness, subconsciousness, muscle pattern, like whatever, man. Like, yeah, that's true. Sure, maybe valid. It's valid. Let's call it that. I worked with the scientist in Italy once that said basically all of physics is wrong, but it's seemingly valid. That was his thing. He's like, it works in that you build bridges, you make roads, like you make rocket ships. Like it obviously is valid, but it's not the truth. It's just getting increasingly more valid. He had a totally different physics. He was able to solve problems that could not be solved with physics as it was. But I couldn't, I tried. I studied with him for a month, one-on-one, like once, no, it was 2 months. It was 1 or 2 months. It's hard to recall there, but he gave me private tutelage. I would travel to his outside of Rome, take a train there, take a bus. Then he'd pick me up from the bus station, drive me to his house for 3 hours. He would tutor me. And then I'd go home and the next week I'd go back. He spoke fine English, brilliant man, but man, I couldn't process what he was saying. Anyway, so all of those models of the psyche, they seem valid, but why is it that I can override them, that I can subdue them, that I can transform them by breathing? Why is it that all of the complications, the complicated thinking in my mind, from what I've talked about with you and my personal experience, though I think you have more meditation experience than me, why is it that by sitting still and letting it flow, by sitting still and observing, by not doing anything and just acknowledging and relaxing, softening up, why is it that all of that works? Why do I not need to know their systems and their models of why this is the way it is? Why is it that I can just relax and breathe into it and it resolves? Like, that's the yin approach. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can be passive about this thing, active but passive. Like, I don't need to go into it with all the language and formulas. I can just kind of soften up about it. And this is a yin approach to the problem. So the title I gave it the YouTube was the yin, what is it? The yin solution to your problems or something like that. Yeah, the yin solution to many problems. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it from. And what do you think about the topic title, or how I've already kind of just like, laid the foundation for the topic?
Yeah, I think that we as human beings go through this life accumulating energy into our hearts. And this energy continues to compact itself. The more energy you put in, the more compact it gets. And we're consistently on taking actions that are compacting this energy into our hearts. And so when a person decides to go into a 10-day retreat or go into the wilderness and meditate and simply do nothing, like that's the ultimate form of meditation, is you do nothing, you let go. Then that energy naturally becomes to soften up and evaporate, because that's just the law of nature. Like if you leave water out in the sun, the water will start to evaporate, because that's how the laws of nature work. Or if you leave a fire without adding any more fuel to it, the fire naturally starts to burn up all its fuel and disappear, because that's how nature works. So it's just nature at play. That's how I interpret it. That's how I interpret the title.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like what you're saying. Excuse me, I'm about to cough. Sounds like you're basically saying that like all things will dissipate given enough time.
Yeah, what do you mean all things dissipate? What do you mean?
It sounded like you were saying, I mean, what I was gathering was that whatever is there, given enough time, it will soften up and kind of relax.
Well, if I have a fire burning and I continuously add fuel to it, it's inevitable. Like I can continue that fire for as long as eternity is, or as long as the universe holds the natural laws together for me to be able to combust this fire. But if I just stop, then naturally it starts to evaporate. Same thing with this being. If I just stop all activity, then all of the things that I've been repressing inside start to come to the surface, like literally come to the surface.
Yes. Yes, it does come to the surface. And so this is what I'm saying, like, there's this idea in thermodynamics that it's called the law of entropy, that basically all things will disorganize. They tend towards disorganization. But the universe does not tend towards organization. It tends towards disorganization. It takes intelligence to organize. And you got to keep organizing, and eventually it still disorganizes. If you take the energy to learn something, and you stop taking the energy to learn it, making the energy to learn it, you'll eventually forget it. The knowledge dissipates. If you put the energy to organize a fire together, but then at some point you stop adding order to it, it will dissipate itself. If you clean your house, but then stop cleaning your house, even if you move nothing around, it will accumulate dust and grime and it'll get dirtier. It tends towards the disorganization. Anytime you try to order something, you have to defragment your computer all the time. You got to sit and meditate sometimes, or your mind gets disordered. That's the tendency for all things in the universe, is to go to disorder. And sounds like that's kind of what you were describing, really.
That's fascinating. Yeah, law of entropy.
Yeah, the law of entropy, man. So, go ahead.
It seems like the entire universe is heading towards death by entropy or something like that. I think I remember watching a YouTube video of how the universe will end. And it'll expand to such an extent that gravity won't be able to hold things together, or things will be so far apart that they no longer will be affected by gravity. And then it's just like, I don't know how many pieces of atoms are floating around the universe. And it's just like a ball of dust, you could say.
Yeah, if you want to call it a ball. Yeah, that's the entropy death theory, the entropy death of the universe. One is that it will expand endlessly and then eventually dissipate. Even black holes evaporate. So the extremely condensed matter at the center of a black hole, eventually little protons will go off. It'll take a few 100 trillion years, which is unimaginable. I mean, the universe is like 15 billion years old, they say. So, I mean, 100 of those, and then 100 of those. So 10,000 ages of the current age of the universe, and black holes will all evaporate into nothing. And, so there'll just be a bunch of almost equidistant protons and, neutrons floating around the universe. It'll be cold. The thermal death of the universe will be around like 2 or 3 degrees Kelvin, which is pretty cold. That's like that's very cold, super cold. You know, another idea is that it'll come back together. It'll collapse on itself, and the universe is breathing, expanding, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's a few other alternatives. You know, there's this book by Carl Sagan, which is called Contact. I refer to it a bunch. He had a really interesting idea of basically a super sophisticated alien race could move around black holes. They could actually relocate a black hole. And so what they black hole being a wormhole to another black hole. So you put matter in and it pops out on somewhere else. And so basically they would move black holes around to swallow matter and transport it to another location. So they were creating new galaxies by moving the matter of dying galaxies into a new location. And so they kept recycling basically galaxies. And that's how they kept the universe going. And
wow.
So that was a fascinating idea. And but yeah, you know, so it's so fascinating to me that, you know, I truly believe, it might be a belief, but I like it because it's very empowering, I believe my belief is empowering. So is that whatever's going on in my mind that I don't like, whatever's going on in my behavior that I don't like, that if I sit with it and breathe, that I can create enough space between my awareness and this thing and this behavior that when I see it for what it is, the natural genius inside of me will acknowledge it as something that's not what, quote, you know, the trend phrase is, it's not serving me. But what I need to be able to let go of what's not serving me is enough space from it. I need to be able to look at it and see the truth of this isn't me. This is like the animal me. This is like the past me. This is the childhood me. This is whatever. It's just not me. It's like an outdated version of me. It's me trying to run Windows 97 on my, you know, I'm on 2019 or whatever. You know, it's amazing. Actually, I think I'm running like Windows 2010 or something on my computer or whatever. That's like 9 years ago. Do you get that? Anyway, so that's just kind of the idea about it. I'm very interested in what the audience has to say on the YIN approach, the YIN solution. Why do I call it YIN? Is because I'm very passively healing my mind and body and my emotional body by simply doing a natural thing, which is breathing. Or if you want to say sit and meditate, but that's basically the absence of non-useful activity. Like I'm just sitting with myself because like everything, most of what we do in our life doesn't appear to be directly survival related. It's like future, we're projecting like in the future, I'm doing this, it's part of my career, it's part of my future survival. But presently, it's not like I'm starving, it's not like I'm hungry, it's not like somebody's attacking me, I'm not under the threat of elements or enemies. So the survival that I am working towards is totally in my mind. It's the survival of my future. And when I sit and meditate, that seems to be a more natural state where you see animals just kind of like hanging out. They're alert, but they're not worried about like tomorrow's survival per se. You know what I mean? So this kind of meditation and breathing approach I consider very yin. To very just receive the natural logic of my biology, my biologic, you know, without going in too much with human logic. I'm just tapping into my bio logic.
Yeah, I'm interested in how the like the person that wrote the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. I'm interested to know how he lived, what his daily schedule was like, because a person like that has developed a mind like that, a heart like that, is so. It's like he's not even living. It's like he's just flowing through the universe. Like the universe is just a river, and he's just floating through the universe, and whatever kind of direction the universe is flowing, and he flows that way. So it's like an effortless living, or yeah. And I think that people that developed judo and different martial arts like that, it's also like very flowy, like very what's the word? Non-resistant, or using the person's momentum to attack. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's a little wordplay. I like to think of it like this. So, what do you think about this? That they're not so much like. Here's the sentence. I forget exactly what your setup was, but here's the sentence that it made me think of. The universe is living them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they became more of a vessel for the universe to live through them versus
Wow.
live their own life. So that's called like harmony, the harmony of the as within, so without,
Mm.
so below, or really as below, so above. So yeah, that's called finding, your purpose, your dharma, to become just a vessel for the will. You could almost call it the will of the universe. I think where people go awry is, or AWOL, is they think the will of the universe is somehow different. Like like the will of the universe, in my understanding, is not going to be separate from your individual will. Like your individual will must be harmonizing with the will of the universe. If it is at the expense of your personal will, then there's going to be some internal conflict. There'll always be like, I'm desiring this, even though the universe is desiring this, and I'm just going to go with the universe. I think there's maybe some sense of personal power to be able to have the discipline to say, that's just my crazy individual ego that's having me want to deviate this way and do that. But there can't be a residue of like repression. Like I'm just repressing my personal desires for the sake of the universe. That's going to come back and bite you at some point. Because just like if you help out a friend or something, but secretly you kind of, you're doing it with the expectation that they help you back at some point in the future. You're not doing it out of like the genuine goodness in your heart to like help your friend. You're doing it out of some expectation. That is setting yourself up to be disappointed, and then there's going to be some emotional response to disappointment. So really going with the will of the universe with complete trust is a very, it's intellectually, I don't know how intellectual that can be. How I do that, how I feel like I do that, how I harmonize with the super consciousness is through breathing and meditation. Like how I breathe, like it's a same wordplay, like how I said the universe lives them. The breath breathes me. The breath is breathing me. The atmosphere is breathing me. The air, it exhales oxygen into me, and it inhales, the atmosphere inhales carbon dioxide from me. Isn't that good? What I just said? That's incredible. Like we're inhaling oxygen from the atmosphere and exhaling CO2 to the atmosphere. Well, what about this? How about the atmosphere is exhaling oxygen into you and inhaling CO2 from you? When I can take on the consciousness of the wind, Vayu, the god Vayu is the deity of wind. When I take on the element air, the perspective of the element air, and the air is breathing me, and I can surrender to it and become one, that I am one with the atmosphere, that there's no difference. There is air in my blood. All that is little tiny droplets of atmosphere. The atmosphere is in me. This is such a trip. Like the atmosphere is in me. I am in the atmosphere. We are actually one. And by surrendering and releasing to this inter-exchange, I can become more of that perspective of the air is breathing me, of the universe is living me. And I have innate dispositions of what I'm good at, what I prefer to do. Naturally, if I have pleasure doing something, I will do it more frequently, more consistently. I'll work harder at it. So, I have an individual nervous system. This body is kind of an individual. But having my own individual expectations of how it's supposed to go might be contrary to how the actual cause and effect of the universe works. And the more I attach myself to it, it seems like that's setting myself up for suffering. So I'm looking at the yin approach, or a yin approach. I'm sure there's many different colors to yin, how you apply the concept of yin. But how we're talking about it here in the science of spiritual growth today, I'm talking about it in the framework of breathing and meditation. What's your thoughts on that? It seemed like you had some thoughts. I was looking at, it's like I see gears churning. We got some questions too, but
yeah, I'll read the questions.
Okay, cool.
What if disorder is necessary? IMC Andra. What if disorder is necessary part of a well-designed cycle? uh, collapsion and growth. Collapsion and growth. I think that's what.
I think he means like collapsing.
Yeah, collapsing.
Andre, you don't sound like you're American when you say it like that. But...
Yeah, he's from Sweden, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's fascinating. I agree with the idea of everything going into disorder. I think we can also observe things falling into order by default. Nature, for example. Interesting. Yeah, nature is a very, very well-designed program, and it seems to organize itself fairly well, better than anything that a human can do. And yeah, I think that that's fascinating.
Yeah, and really, I'd like to look at this word default. Nature doesn't, I disagree. I respectfully disagree that things don't fall into order by default. That is not the default. Intelligence pushes things into order. It's called biologic, biology, ecology, ecologic. It's the logic of eco. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So the logic of nature is pushing things into order, but there's much more disorder than there is order in nature. And every time there's a buildup of order, there's a massive collapse. So every time there's a buildup of a forest, there's inevitably going to be a big fire. Every time there's, let's say, a buildup of grass in the grassland, there's going to be a fire. Every time there's a buildup of a rabbit population, there's going to be an explosion of wolves that comes right after that creates a disorder in the rabbit population. You know, every time there's a massive buildup of, you know, stars, there's going to be a black hole that comes from that, which is going to create a lot of chaos around it. You know, every time there is a big buildup of, let's say, high pressure, which is like the organization of atmosphere, there's going to be a storm right after that. It's going to blow over. You know, the order flows to disorder, and there's chaos in that. And I could find a million examples. The whole nature is the example of it. You know, we can also observe things falling into order by default. I mean, it's default because you're so used to it. It looks like default because that's default to you. But that wasn't default of the earth. The earth organized that. In the beginning, that wasn't there. You know, the continents are formed, and then disorder happens when they collide with each other. And one goes underneath another, called subduction, or they collapse into each other and then make mountains. And so that's order, but what is that order coming from is the disorder on the other end of the plate tectonic, where it's separating from itself. So the order has come from the disorder of something else. So looking at it in a narrow frame is that order. So the order of like your consciousness, let's say you study some material and you learn from something and it creates order. Obviously that didn't come by default. It came from you exerting effort and will, time, your limited time and metabolism to create order in your mind. Now that person who wrote that book created that order in that book by a whole lot of trial and error and study and condensing it into a compact order. But you're missing all of the disorder of their life. And every relationship that they needed to detach from, every relationship that they said goodbye to, every opportunity that they said no to that opportunity so that they could write this book. So a lot of chaos happened around that on the fringes to all come together and create that order that then you fed yourself and created order in your mind. Sound absurd?
That's very well said. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know. I thought I was almost sounded ridiculous. Well, IMC Andres says, so do you see a storm or eruption as disorder? We could agree, just have a little different definition. Do I see a storm or eruption as disorder? Storm or eruption as disorder. Storm or eruption as disorder. Listen, we need common definitions. Disorder is tending towards higher entropy. Okay, entropy means less predictable, more chaotic. So the more condensed something is, the more ordered it is, the lower its entropy. So as things disperse, they become higher entropy. This is the entropy death of the universe. So everything is going towards maximum entropy. So a storm releasing a storm is a condensed cloud of water that's highly ordered compared to a mist. When the storm releases its water, it's higher entropy. It loses its order. In fact, it literally loses its order so much that it loses itself. So it goes from order to disorder. The eruption, let's say, of a volcano or something, creates havoc and chaos. That was very accurately, very precisely separated earth and air. Earth was here, there's the boundary, and then there's air. Now there's a mixing happening. Earth goes into the air. And it creates more entropy, creates more mixing. You know, in the end, the universe will completely mix. There's not going to be a star here and then a big vacuum of space and then a planet here. No, they're all going to blend together. It's just going to be a molecule here, molecule here, molecule here, molecule here. Eventually, the molecules will separate and they'll just be quarks floating around. So yeah, a storm or an eruption is tending towards disorder. It's creating more entropy. But that's going to be fueled. There's a lot of reasons why that will create later more organization. As time moves forward, I mean, this is natural sciences. The earth is becoming more ordered as long as the sun is fueling us, because we're having an input of energy. So the energy input is surplus to the energy output. When you have energy input more than output, it creates more order. Because in order to create entropy, you apply work. That's a physics term, is to apply work. So you have to input energy to create order. That's why you can't just order your mind by doing nothing. What you can do is remove causes of disorder by doing nothing. That's why this YIN solution to a lot of problems, the title of this YouTube video. By sitting and just breathing and meditating, I can let go of the causes of some of the causes of disorder, which would be like contrary beliefs, counter thoughts, destructive beliefs, and but to actually impose order, to create order from the disorder, requires a surplus of energy, an input of energy. And yeah. So I feel as if I'm getting off science of spiritual growth, but that's
yeah. Listening to you talk, you know, in the beginning of our podcast, you say, my name is Yogi Chris, PhD. I have a PhD background, and you'll kind of get an understanding of my PhD background, the way that I speak. And the way that you're speaking, it's like, wow, you know, I can tell that you've studied so much and such an analytical perspective. Like, you know how to describe things really well, or at least like the technical aspects of things that I have no idea about. So that's fascinating.
Thank you.
And yeah, and yeah, man, I watched a YouTube video yesterday of a man that ate magic mushrooms, and he said that he saw God. And he said that God was just like a manager for this universe. And he's like, okay, I manage the universe and I just make sure that things don't go out of chaos, and like there's relative order. And he saw that there was a multi-dimensional aspect to this universe. So there's other universes besides this one. So I think that every topic that a person discusses has to go fundamentally boil down to the most rudimentary aspect of what it means to be a human and what's important to this human life. And I think that's exactly what, you know, the beginning of our discussion we talked about is just allowing and releasing. And that's what makes the most positive difference, in my opinion, into a human being, for a Homo sapien.
Allowing and releasing. Would you unpack that a little bit? Allowing and releasing. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I see that people like, you know, people have a lot of desires. Like people have the desire to grow in wealth. They want to have a lot of abundance. And of course it's perfectly fine and natural, and it's survival. But then you see people that have lots of wealth and they don't seem, their material needs are satisfied, and all the fears they might have had for, you know, eating or shelter or things like that, they're dissipated, but there's still something inside of them that is unsatisfactory. Like it didn't totally solve all their problems. It just solved like a few, you know, like a niche of problems. So it seems that the most rudimentary aspect of this game of life is from the inside out, from letting go of all the things that are causing the unsatisfactoriness within ourselves. And I think that this is what it all boils down to, is this, like, inside of here, the heart.
Letting go of the causes of dissatisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think that people are born with the root causes of dissatisfaction?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And does that come from past lives, or is that just like a human condition, like, I don't know, like the Christian almost original sin kind of, you're born with like the root cause of dissatisfaction?
I don't have any personal experience. I mean, I think it comes from past lives. I think it comes from, yeah, from past lives, just from the things they've accumulated over and over in the past.
Mm, and letting go of that. Yeah. So that's fascinating. Yeah. We have this.
You froze. Okay, so Christopher froze. The Forbidden One asks, do humans need nature to stay on order or vice versa? I think that if a person spends more time in nature, you will naturally feel orderly or natural.
And we're back.
I,
All right. And we're still streaming. Awesome. So I don't know. I didn't mean.
I think, I think he froze again. This is a perfect time to practice yin.
That's amazing. Do you hear me now?
Yay, there we go. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, man. And it's still streaming on YouTube. That's impressive. Good job, Zoom. Oh, no, it's not streaming on YouTube. Okay, maybe the video ended. That's all right. We're recording. So I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying, Yuri?
Yeah, I think that was a perfect opportunity to let go and to allow to practice yin. There was a seeming problem that our audio froze, and I felt like I needed to do something, and then I just stopped and allowed my body just to live, or just experience living, or just I was just being.
And hopefully you guided all of our listeners through that process also.
Yeah, if they could hear it. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be silence and they might be confused about what's happening. Cool. So just a quick, I don't know exactly what you're asking, Forbidden One, but definitely humans need nature. Nature doesn't need humans.
Yeah. I heard Eckhart Tolle once say that human beings, the planet Earth, can so quickly evaporate human beings that it would just be like a couple of decades, and then all human beings would be extinct. And he said something like the Earth could change the reproductive cycle of a man and a woman so that it no longer would work, and then that's it. And it would take maximum 100 years, and all human beings would go extinct. And when I first heard that and read that, like at I don't know how old I was, 19, 18, I thought that was kind of ridiculous. I don't know, that's just like science fiction. And then I took magic mushrooms one day, and I was sitting at a park and just watching the earth breathe in and out. And I intuitively understood that absolutely, like, it's absolutely realistic and it absolutely can happen. I felt like the earth is just just like just allowing human beings to be here, but it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to allow human beings to be here. So just like in a dog that would move its body in a way that releases all of its fleas, so that the planet Earth can do the same thing and just release all humans from the planet. So make sure you treat the Earth with respect and kindness, because you know.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And, I know it's kind of drugged out, but just to kind of wrap it up, I want to hear how you would describe this. Like you said, you saw the earth breathing in and out. What does that mean?
Well, I was just sitting at the park, and the psilocybin was doing its thing in my brain, and I saw that the earth was a living organism. And I saw that the earth, the expression that the earth is a living organism, like that's literally true. Like the entire earth is a being that's alive, and it's breathing, oxygen through the grass and through the earth and through the plants and through the trees, through everything. And it's inhaling and exhaling very subtly. And I was able to perceive this with this. And I thought to myself, wow, this is incredible. This is magical. And I developed more respect for our planet, and more reverence for our planet.
That's so interesting, because I would want that kind of reverence and respect for people also.
Absolutely.
And, for all of the ills and evils and shortcomings of humans, I mean, the earth has killed many more organisms. The earth is like a mass genocidal murderer, So I love having respect for the earth. I want to find that also in people, because people are breathing and doing all that too.
Yeah.
But it's truly magical when you find that the things you thought were inanimate are actually animate. And, massive. Sure. There's probably all kinds of animate things around me that I'm not even seeing. Because, shit, that's just one example. Now, that's on psilocybin, so, you take it for a grain of salt, but there have been people that are not on drugs that have said the same thing. So, whatever. Enough people say it, and enough people believe it, and it just becomes real, So that's fascinating. Okay, cool. So let's see. Do we have any other questions? Where can I find magic mushrooms? That's not an appropriate question for the podcast. If you can't, listen, if you can't find magic mushrooms, you don't deserve to take them. Got it?
I agree.
So there you go. That's your answer. And, okay, so any closing statements, Yuri, for our audience?
Yeah, I think that next Monday we should talk about exactly what you just mentioned, how we can build reverence for our fellow Homo sapiens. And I think it's an important topic, because that's what's needed on planet Earth it's just what's needed for everyone, including myself. And so we'll talk about it, and we'll exchange our ideas. So make sure you come back for that.
Absolutely. Building reverence for other human beings. And cool. So we're changing the time next week. It's going to be 5 p.m. starting next week, and going forward, 5 p.m. Eastern time. This broadcast today took place at 12 p.m., but we're moving to 5 p.m., so that's 2 p.m. California time. And so tell all your friends. Definitely, if you're catching the recording, leave us a comment, leave us a review. This is how we get discovered in the iTunes search engine and all of the other, all that technical mumbo jumbo. And share it, Let us know your thoughts. Send us a message. If you have any topic ideas, but you can't make it live, send us a message. We'll be happy to try to include it. And thank you, Yuri, for joining. And join our private Facebook group for our monthly Sangha talk that's only available to people that are in the Facebook group. So go to Facebook, find the Science of Spiritual Growth, and ask to join. So we'll catch you on next week, next Monday at 5 p.m. Namaste.